Hey everybody, Dylan Distraction here, coming to you live from Batlantic Studios. Thought I'd do a quick back to drawing board talk about comic book show. It's on my drawing table and let you know affiliate links in the description if you want to grab a Pacific Arc pencil. Thank you so much, Pacific Arc, for supporting my work and creating really great art supplies for people. So Pacific Arc, this is the H1309, H1305. This is the DP05 0.5 millimeter. Really love Pacific Arc art supplies. And if you want to grab the paper or the pencils or the erasers that I'm using, check out the affiliate links in the description. This is my creator-owned comic book series, Nuke Force, coming to Kickstarter. Check out Batlantic Store, Batlantic Studios, Dylan Distraction, Dylan Andrews Art. Love working on Nuke Force. Thrilled to be able to create these characters and work in this world. Really enjoying this series, but I want to show you a book I got that I love. Michel Fiffe's COPRA. COPRA's ending. Death of COPRA's happening right now. This is book one, hardcover, The Master Collection. Thought I'd flip through it real quick to get inspired, and also I just love Michel's work. It's just so good. Great end papers here. And also, I got a little illustration from Fiffe when I saw him at Heroes Con in 2019. Seems like a lifetime ago. Ash Can edition. So yeah, I love COPRA. I love Fiffe's work. I just think it's so energetic, so well written, such cool characters, such beautiful page design, such great storytelling. And he's been working on this series forever. And so fun seeing the roughs. So fun how he uses this sort of toned paper. I love how he's drawing everything on the board, doing all the lettering on the board. Really just a master craftsman. Talk about craft. This guy's got craft. So I love seeing this work. I love just the weird Kirby-ness of a lot of it. The weird Ditko-isms. And obviously the homage to his Suicide Squad. And yeah, he's pulling from all the stuff I love and creating something new and unique. And that definitely inspired me to pull from stuff I love and try to create something new and unique. And like he had said, if Jack Kirby and Stan Lee weren't worried about pulling from their influences, why should I be worried about it? And yeah, no, you get something like this, just distinctly original. Doesn't look like anything else out there. And that wild holding line that like looks like he's just crushing a brush, just grinding it in there. And the wild zany colors, great inking, beautiful work. I won't flip through all of it. I won't ruin it for you. You definitely should be reading COPRA, even though it's ending now. Death of COPRA happening right now. I love seeing the roughs. He just recently did a guide to creator-owned comic book publishing. I don't have that in front of me, or I'd grab that, but I think it's over on the stack. But yeah, definitely check that out. That's available on his Etsy store. Guide to creator-owned comic book publishing, I believe is what it's called. Maybe I made that up. It's called something like that. I'm sure you'll find it. So that's a great book. But if you want to get the individual, here's a stack of COPRA. So I have them in the Bergen Street Press editions, but also Image re-released them. So I have a couple of different. So this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is round 4 in the Bergen Street, and then 5, 6, 7, and then this is round 1 in Bergen Street. So I love this series. I'm a huge fan of his work, and the Bergen Street printings and the Image printing, slightly different paper texture on the covers, but very similar interior pages. And you can't go wrong. Grab them in either edition, whatever you find. I don't have a lot of the individual issues, but the collections are just beautiful. I love seeing his work, and I love how he's managed to do creator and comic books for as long as he has. But he's also worked with Rob Liefeld's Bloodstrike. And this is just a match made in heaven for me. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love 90s comics. And I love Rob Liefeld's 90s comics. And I love seeing Fiffe's interpretation of these wild characters. Yeah, I mean, that's just brutal. So, it's brutalists. So definitely check out Fiffe's work. I don't need to tell you that. I mean, obviously, if you like creator-owned independent comic books, you should know about COPRA. But the other book I want to show off that I just got, I think Fiffe is the modern Jack Kirby, but here's the actual Jack Kirby. So this is Jack Kirby, covers of Jack Kirby. Hold on. Marvel, the Marvel Comics covers of Jack Kirby, Volume 1, 1961 to 1964. There's some real bangers in here. Yeah, I mean, you know, we're all just following in Kirby's footsteps. And there's some great ones in here. I wish that this was like I don't know, like a textured paper, just because I like it when it has a little bit of a grit to it. But it's great to see these reproduced. I mean, we've seen a lot of these 1,000 times, but just so iconic, so beautiful, so great. And this is some of the earlier covers, but they're all good. I mean, even pre-Marvel stuff is just great. The Simon and Kirby stuff, I love that stuff too. Atlas stuff, I love all that stuff. So people often say the Amazing Spider-Man #1 cover, you know, it's not as, it's, I don't know. I agree. It's not my favorite. It's good, but he's done so many covers and just such beautiful work. I mean, just crushing it. That's a great one. That's a great one. And the thing about Kirby was his compositions were wild. He's not relying on any sort of standard sort of shapes, right? Like if you think about like Mignola, who's, you know, relying on a lot of triangular sort of orientations, or it's always just kind of like a storytelling element. Oftentimes what you'd find a lot of these earlier comic book covers is they'd have dialogue balloons. So it wasn't just that they had to be a pinup of the characters or a freeze frame of action. Often what you're finding with these covers is they would tell you about the story interior. Obey me, my puppets, for my will is your will. You shall never escape your new master. I can't help myself. The puppet master is making me attack the others. Don't think we mustn't let him control us. There's storytelling elements in these covers. I'm flying into trap. The protector was waiting for me. Which they don't do very much anymore. And often I think what happens is if, like this one doesn't have any dialogue, but it has a lot of narrative caption balloons. No dialogue, but narration captions. Right. The Fantastic Four think I'm trapped, but they don't suspect my real power. You don't see that much in modern comic books. And honestly, we don't really even recognize it in this comic book. If I told you that there was dialogue balloons on a lot of these covers, you'd be like, really? You're like, yeah, you can read the cover. It's like a story element. Like, oh, it's often pulled from the interior page, where at some point, this guy is going to fight this guy and they're going to talk about it. Yeah, I love all this stuff. I love the holding lines. I love the thick brushwork. I love the made-up gibberish buildings, right? It's just like, a bunch of windows. Yep, makes sense. Looks good to me. Like maybe there's a watch sign, sure. I love this X-Men issue 1 cover. So good. Great rocks. I just point out when people draw really good rocks. Jack Kirby drew everything really well. Great gibberish buildings. When I'm drawing buildings, I do mostly like this. It's like just a bunch of boxes and a bunch of random windows. Far enough away that they don't have to, it just kind of frames the subject. They're not actually going to go into those buildings. Not that important. It just has to be a shape showing you a location. Awesome. So yeah, check that book out. Check out Michel Fiffe's work. So good. All right. Guess I'll draw now. I don't know. I'd rather just look at comics. But all right, so I'm going to draw some more of my own creator-owned comic book series. Nuke Force, Major Grit, Mr. Malto, Pump Station, Claudia. Let's grab a pencil. Thank you so much, Pacific Arc. Reminds me of that scene in Wayne's World. Like we will not bow to any corporate sponsors as he's eating a Domino's pizza. No, I use Pacific Arc stuff, so I don't mind telling you about it because I'm just sharing with you the stuff I like to use. So check it out if you want. If you don't, that's fine. Honestly, as long as you just keep making comics, use whatever works. So it's really dry in here. So the paper's really firm. So I find, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong or whatever, but the more humidity, the squishier the paper, the more it smudges. The less humidity, the firmer the paper, the more it cuts. That's my experience. Makes sense, right? I think so. So yeah, thank you everyone that's gone to batlanticstore.com and grabbed an issue of the Nuke Force classified comic showing the introduction to these characters. Got quite a bit planned for these characters over 2025. Gonna be launching a Kickstarter. Gonna be doing a bunch of fun stuff. So stay tuned. I love drawing these characters. I love drawing this world. And again, I'll give you the premise. So the idea behind the story, imagine if in 1945 World War II ended, but the battle continued and there were more threats that rose up. And what would people in 1945 think 2025 would look like? So these characters all take place in 2025 modern world, but through a retro futuristic sort of lens where they imagine it from 1945 sensibilities, essentially. So I love that idea, like a retro futuristic idea. So that's what Nuke Force is. And there's threats, and they all believe that atomic energy and nuclear power were what was going to be the wave of the future. So there's a lot of that. And bigger and more evil monsters and bad guys. And how they would fight against those threats to America and the world. Similar, kind of an idea similar to Dark Knight Returns. Not that I'm comparing my work to Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, but in that book, you're like, Reagan's still president. It's like, Batman's in the future. It's not that far in the future, but it's a ways in the future. And they're like, Reagan's still president. And you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of that same sort of, what would people in 1985 think 2025 looks like? And it's like, oh yeah, we'll be fighting Russia and Reagan would still be president. There'd still be a Cold War. Kind of is. Maybe they weren't that far off. So yeah, probably what I'm going to do is draw all this as accurately and as much as I want to, and then I'll scan it so that I'll have a tight penciled version. I always say tight pencils, but man, I have a tough time doing tight pencils. The pencils just aren't that tight. My inks aren't that tight either. But I do want to ink this digitally just because I feel like it. So probably what I'll do is I'll just drop my iPad down here. So I'll scan it, or even just snap a picture of it. Drop my iPad down. I can draw it digitally, but still record it if people want to see the process of how I ink stuff digitally. So yeah, showing it up to the mirror, looking at it in reverse, yawning. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's looking good. Oh man, I'm so good at drawing. Wow, look at this. Wowza. All that looking at reference and artists that are so much better than me has helped. One thing I will say about it, even if I convince myself I'm drawing tight, part of it's that. I think part of it's that. I'm like, I'm going to draw this. I'm going to pencil this tight. And I go, no, you're not. But I go, convince myself. But if I can convince myself I am, then I'll draw it more tight than if I convinced myself I'm not. Because if I go, I can do it loose, I'm going to ink it and save it in the inks, then I definitely won't pencil it tight. That's definitely going to be a super loose, very rough looking illustration. But if I go, oh no, maybe I will pencil it tight, then maybe I'll pencil it tight. What do you mean by tight pencils? So you look at what's a good example? So let's see, Fiffe's work, right? I would call these really loose, beautifully loose inks. Beautifully loose inks, right? It takes a certain level of confidence to throw down inks that rough. But he's able to do it. And do it really, really well. And his pencils, I'd say, are also pretty loose. You know? Like, if he handed this to somebody else, I think they'd get there. But, you know, I don't know. He's, you know, I love this. I'd read a whole comic book just like that. As opposed to someone like, what else can we look at? Paul Pelletier. That dude's tight pencils. I don't have any of his work right here, but his pencils are super tight. So I kind of looser pencils because I know I'm going to be inking it. I'm not handing it off to somebody, right? I think that's probably the difference. Paul Pelletier knows he's handing it off to somebody. He knows every line and stroke. Someone's going to go, oh, I guess I'll draw that. And they're going to have to make decisions for him. But with Fiffe, with me, I'm not handing it off to anybody. I know I'm the guy. I'm the man. So if I'm not, I can always edit on the fly. So I don't have to show it all because similar to like an Eric Larson, Like, I know I'm going to be the one making those decisions, so I don't have to try to make sure that it's all there, because it just has to be like, so for example here, the underdrawing's still there. You can see that line, right? I don't know if Fiffe has that in his stuff, but you kind of see some structural lines under there, right? Right. If I was to hand it to someone, they'd be like, is that his hair? Like, is that a shape? Am I supposed to render that? Like, what's going on there? Right? So Paul Pelletier would have to get rid of all that, because he would hate for any of that underdrawing to be inked. But with me, I was like, I don't matter. I know what I'm trying to go for there. I can figure it out. So there's Major Grit. Let's draw his cape. It's not a comic book unless somebody has a cape. That's not true. And then some smoke, maybe, like that. And that's the glow off of his hand, maybe. Like that. Sure, go with that. Seems fine. But one thing I do often is that different densities of graphite. So the underdrawings like this, kind of lighter HB. And then overdrawing is, I don't even know what's in here, 2B. You see that a lot. Greg Capullo does that, where his underdrawing will be like a 2H, and then it'll go over with an HB. And you're like, well, why'd you do that? Well, what it does is it helps you figure out where the line is, because you can see this more easily than this. This is dull, and it's lighter. But this line here is darker, so therefore I can more easily see it. But I don't want to fill with that line, with that density of graphite, because it'll get a real sloppy mess. So I fill with the lighter color graphite. So yeah, I hope everybody's doing great. Hope everybody's having a great, whatever day this is, whatever year this is, whatever month this is, whenever you're watching this. Hope you're doing great. Whatever it is, hope it's great. And these poses are similar, but different. Probably because I was looking at that. Let's switch up. There we go. That's completely different. So, yeah, this is a series I love working on. I love working on Nuke Force. I love all these characters. It's been so much fun. I really hope people enjoy it when I launch the Kickstarter and are able to support it and back it, so I can keep making more of these books. And I've got ideas already for the next arc. So definitely subscribe, like, comment, share. Check out the classified edition, available right now, batlanticstore.com, and makecomicscool.com, my Patreon, Dylan Andrews Art, Dylan Distraction. I love making comics, and I'm just going to keep making comics as the comic book industry is going through some changes. I'm just going to keep working on making comics. So hopefully you like my comics and want to continue to support comic book creators and independent creators and independent publishers, because I love making comics. I'm just going to keep doing it. It's one thing I don't like about technical pencils or clicky pencils is if I don't if I hold it at too much of an angle, it snaps the graphite. And I have a particularly tough time with snapping the graphite if it's a blue pencil. That's something that Paul Pelletier does quite a bit, is he'll do a lot of his underdrawing in blue to prevent, again, the inker from inking that line. Because if the inker does ink a blue line, then you'd be like, what are you doing? That would clearly be an oopsie. Oh, I know where I got some Paul Pelletier work. Let's show off this. Hold on. Paul Pelletier did a great run of Superman. I'd say probably one of the best modern Superman stories is this. Man of Tomorrow Volume 1. Venditti and Pelletier. I mean, I don't know why this isn't on everybody's radar as one of the greatest Superman stories ever told. It's just so good. And it's got a little bit right here. There's some Paul Pelletier pencils over blue. But you can see, I wish they had more. But he has a Capsiculsa right there. So that's Paul Pelletier pencils, super tight. And there's inks by Drew Hennessy, which I think are great. I love the inking on this. A lot of lines. But you can see how he's doing blue line underdrawing. I don't know if you can really tell there. Probably remove the blue line in that scan. But he's doing blue line underdrawing and then graphite over, which is just great. And there's other artists in here too. They're also really, really good. But Paul is just one of the best. So I'd say maybe the best penciler currently working. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. I say Paul Pelletier, greatest modern penciler working in comic books right now. You can see him, he's doing some G.I. Joe stuff for Skybound. He did some Geiger stuff for Ghost Machine. And he should be on Spider-Man? No, he's better than that. He should be on what's the best thing in comic books? He should be on. Who would I fan cast Paul Pelletier? What book should I put Paul on if I was editor-in-chief of something? I would put him on. Comment below. Comment what you think Paul Pelletier, who I believe to be the best comic book penciler currently working in comic books. What book would you put him on? I mean, he'd crush it on Spider-Man. He'd smash it on Moon Knight. He'd destroy, in a good way, anything you put him on. He's a pro. He's a pro's pro. But what book would I have him on that I'd be like, yes? Captain America. You put Paul Pelletier on a Captain America. You give him 25. You give him 100 issues of Captain America, Grunwald style, adventure, Bloodstone Hunt, Kieran Dwyer, Bloodstone Hunt-ish. Captain America, just going through it, doing it. I would buy every single issue. I'd buy multiple copies. Captain America. Who else? I love his Flash stuff. I love when Paul was working with, just kind of jumping back and forth. Howard Porter was doing some Flash stuff, and Paul Pelletier was doing some Flash stuff. That stuff was great too. I think Paul on a Captain America would just be the bee's knees. So make it happen, Marvel. What are some other books I think you'd be great at? A bunch of Valiant characters I love. So like Ninjak or Exo Manowar or Bloodshot. I'd love to see Paul on any of those, but I don't know what's happening with those. I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. I love his DC stuff. I love his Batman. I love Superman, obviously. And I love his Hulk stuff. His Hulk was just so good. But yeah, I don't know, man. If you put him on a Captain America, just have like Venditti write it. If you had a Venditti Paul Pelletier Captain America run. Give him 50 issues. Give him 100 issues. I mean, would you buy that? Comment below. I'd buy that. I'd buy the heck out of that. Or X-Men. I mean, if you put Paul... I love Paul's Wolverine story he did. But, a little gross. If you read that Wolverine story he did. Called, like... What's it called? Like, Guts or Goops or something. That story's a little intense for me. Well, I'm trying to remember. But it's great. His art's great. But it's not really a superhero book. That's definitely more of a horror book. But it's great. Alright, I'm going to keep drawing this. Again, Nuke Force, my creator on comic book series. Major Grip, Mr. Malto, Pump Station, Claudia. I just got to go through and keep drawing it forever. It's just going to never end. I just draw forever until I don't anymore. So thank you so much, everybody, for checking out my affiliate links. Thank you so much for looking at the books that I was looking at with me. Hopefully you have some books you would suggest I look at. What do you think I should look at? We could look at, for next time, we could look at some John Romita Jr., we look at some Howard Porter. We can look at some... What else is in front of me? Ooh, Norm Brayfogle. Ooh, I got some Norm Brayfogle. Mark Bagley. I think another genius comic book artist. Comic book illustrator. Rob Liefeld. We got a bunch of stuff. I'm just looking around the room right now. So yeah, happy to look at anything you might want. Ooh, John Byrne. Got some John Byrne stuff over there. So if any suggestions, please let me know. Like, subscribe, share, thumbs up, hit the bell notification. Affiliate links are in the description. Check out the affiliate links. Get some art supplies for yourself. Treat yourself. And thanks so much. Dylan Distraction, Make Comics Cool, Batlantic Store, Batlantic Studios, Dylan Andrews Art. Okay, thanks. Bye.